Hello, I am Trina Burgess. Thank you so much for joining us for the ABCs of Leadership. This year, starting back in January, I started a journey in leadership. I wasn't really sure what I was getting into, but over this last year, I've met so many amazing people, and my greatest desire is to share them with the world, for you guys to get to learn to get to meet my new friends and get acquainted with really incredible people in the world who are game changers, who just desire to make this world a better place just because we can. And so I came up with this idea of ABCs of leadership, that we could do a series teaching people the leadership skills that we have learned and give this as a gift to the world. So today, starting with the letter A, I have my first guest, Ava Manuel. And Ava, welcome, Ava. So good to have you. Thank you so much for coming. I love this. So just to start this out, this is really fun. Um, so with Ava and A, we get to start the ABCs. I actually live in Alberta, which is another A world,
Mhm.
Lethbridge, Alberta, and we love to call ourselves LA, like LA Transit. And you are from Los Angeles,
Yes.
editor-in-chief of the Los Angeles Tribune. So you and I met up. We just were recently in Austin. All these A's. Oh my goodness. We're gonna write an encyclopedia. We were just recently in Austin and you gave me this edition of the Los Angeles Tribune. And on page 22, you showed me that the lady that brought us all together, which
Yes.
is Shanda Sumter. So we came together at her business and leadership event. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so delighted and excited that I get to be serving your community, your audience, and the people that are just like looking forward to what ABC of Leadership is about. And I get to be A. So I'm excited.
Awesome. So tell us what letter you picked for the letter A to kick us off here.
Absolutely. Well, abundance is what really comes up for me on the word A. And it's perfect. I was telling Trina, it's perfect to start the ABC of leadership with abundance because that's what it's all
Mhm.
about, right? Like there's
Yeah.
abundance in everything. Um, you know, if I may start with my story, I grew up like really poverty minded. My mom intentionally had me experience poverty because her thoughts were if I experienced poverty so bad, I would will myself out of it. She grew up in poverty and she willed herself out of it. She went to college. She's the first one in her family of nine brothers and sisters, too. And she's the youngest, well, second to the youngest um, to have gotten a college degree, had a master's degree. And so her principle was if I experienced poverty, that I would will myself out of it. So I grew up with two sets of clothes. So I have one pair of socks and to wear and one pair to wash, and she taught me to wash my clothes from as early as 6 years old. And so I would like wash one and wear one, and if it's a rainy day and it wouldn't dry, I would wear them wet, or I probably wouldn't change. So I grew up really embarrassed about being so poor because she made it so intentional. Like she would take us to the store and she would bargain and say, we're very poor, like we don't have money. She would like haggle down a price from 25 cents to just make it 10 cents because my daughter is hungry. And it's so embarrassing. And I brought that with me growing up. And it was one of the hardest things that I had to get out of my system because, money doesn't grow on trees. You got to work hard for money, all of the phrases that comes with like that poverty mentality. But one thing broke it for me. It was, of course, a series of leadership. Like even when I came into leadership, when you believe that things are hard to come by, that money is hard to come by. I'm a hospital physical therapist. I'm well paid, and yet I manifest poverty around me. I have six kids, and I was a single mom during their teenage years. And no matter, even though I make over six figures, I was always manifesting poverty around me. It was always scarce. There's scarcity in food, scarcity in clothing. There's always scarcity in everything that I do. I felt like everything is always always not enough. I generate breakdowns in cars, problems in the house, things like that, just because I was so poverty minded. But I took myself through leadership because I knew I was meant for more. I knew that, I was called for more. And so I took myself through leadership. And when I first invested on myself in leadership, by the time I put my account and my husband's account together, he had $4 in his account and $4 on mine just for the down payment. And I didn't know where I was going to get the second and the third payment, but I didn't care. I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to sell anything and I will, like, do anything to be able to make the second and third payment. But it was the best decision I've made because I- my cap in my abundance was leadership. And so having taken myself to leadership really have changed that for me in the last 3 years that I've been in the community that we're in together, Trina, in leadership, and through the mentorship and leadership of the community of Shanda Sumter. The one thing that broke that for me was the thought that I got from one of my mentors that wealth is access. It's not the money in your bank account. It's not the debt that you don't have in your credit cards or your loans or that, but it's the access. You have access to money, access to cash, access to speakers, access to resources, access to tools, like access. And then I realized, like, she had us do an exercise. My mentor was the mentor of Robert Kiyosaki in his very beginning days, Tony Robbins, a lot, Jack Canfield, a lot of the mentors, and she's a mentor to multimillionaires and billionaires. And she was saying, like, the billionaires owes like hundreds of millions of dollars. The millionaires,
Oh,
multimillionaires
yeah,
owes
they owe
millions of
money,
dollars.
right?
Owes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
like
like
they're
what?
if you look at the amount that they owe, it's billions.
Right. So she was asking, like, who's richer? The ones who's negative 20,000 in credit card debt, or the ones who's like $100 million in debts? Like, who's richer? Of course, the one who has less debt is richer, like, technically, right? But they feel wealthier. They feel, they act wealthier because no matter what struggles they have, no matter what problems they have, they have access to somebody. Call that specialist, call that lawyer. Let's bring let's bring that expert in. They have access. And so access is wealth. And I took an inventory of the access that I have, access to even just the community that we have. There isn't a problem that you can have that cannot be solved with the community of leaders
Yeah,
that we have. There's always someone
yeah,
who knows someone who can solve it, right? um,
absolutely.
so realizing that I'm wealthy because of the access around me, like, really shifted my mind and started to turn that around and started, like, creating opportunities, opening doors, creating wealth, because that shifted for me. The identity shifted for me when I realized I have access to
Mhm.
wealth. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's it's just it's right, like you make an investment to be in proximity with people who have resources, and then you can solve any problem, right? It's like
Right.
that's why we go get an education, right? Because we're like, okay, we're gonna go into debt and spend a whole bunch of money on education. Why? Because we know that getting that education will give us opportunities, right? So I
Absolutely.
love that.
So we were talking about debt last night, right? I'm like, is it really a debt, or is it an investment that's earning interest? When you've invested in yourself, you've invested in your business, you've invested in your own growth, your personal development. Like, is it really a
Yeah.
debt, or is it an investment on an interest that's exponentially
Yeah.
expounding, and it's growing and it's growing and it's growing, and you see it growing?
Yeah.
And so some people, it might not be clearly manifesting as dollars yet, but you see, like, when you're building a business, it took me over a year to build what I have built in my department in the Los Angeles Tribune.
Mhm.
There's a building phase where you're building and you're creating the foundations underneath before you could even monetize. Like, you can't just automatically monetize. In some businesses they could, but in the business model that I was in, I couldn't automatically monetize. I had to build the basis first, create the proof of concept,
Mm.
you know and so, was that a debt, or was that an investment that's earning interest? And so,
I love
yeah,
that.
one of my best and my most favorite quote was from Beyonce, and she said that, like, I don't gamble, but if I would gamble, I would take a bet on myself.
Oh,
And that's what a lot of us in leadership do. It's like we take a bet on ourselves, we invest in ourselves, we invest in our ideas, we invest in our business. And I just wanted to like let the people know who are listening to this, there's abundance. There's, our world was made with the spirit of abundance. There's not just one tree, there's not one bush, there's not one ant, there's not one flower. Like everything is made in abundance. There's always in bunches and bunches overflowing, like fruits are made in like overflowing bunches. Like the whole nature of the world is in abundance. Like if you look at nature, now there are thoughts out there that wants us to subscribe to scarcity so that we can subscribe to um certain kind of um agendas that they want us to take into or subscribe to. But if we look at the very nature of how the world is created, everything is created in abundance. And so if we just come from an abundance mentality, knowing that there's someone out there who's got my back, who wants me to live in abundance because that's how he designed everything, is in
yeah,
abundance, then our minds will start to see abundance. I
yeah,
was talking to you last night about our amygdala. Our brains are
yeah,
designed to be efficient and to keep us safe. So anything that's clutter, our minds will turn it off and shut it off. We won't even see. But once it comes into focus. Like once we start seeing abundance, we see abundance everywhere. One of the
absolutely.
most powerful experience that I have, the realization of how we tune things out and we focus what we see, what we focus on, was I was driving with my spiritual dad, and he said, we saw an electric blue car. It's an electric blue, really stunning. And he said, I want that car for you. That car would just be so perfect for you, because it would like really accentuate who you are when you come out of that car or you drive that car. And from the moment I drove him from my house to the airport, 3 hours, I saw hundreds of electric blue car. I could even see it from the other side of the freeway. Oh, electric blue car. I'm like, has there always been a lot of electric blue cars? Because I felt like it was very unique, and it was like a rare color, and all of a sudden I was seeing it everywhere. It's because my mind has focused on it, and from
Yeah,
and it becomes now a focus of my attention. And so no matter where it was, even it was coming up on the freeway across the other bridge, I would see it. If it was coming from across the other freeway coming towards me, I would see it. Like I see it everywhere. And so
yeah,
just that abundance consciousness, like if the moment you believe that there is plenty for everybody, there isn't competition, right? Like for all of us who are in the coaching business, people say there's over saturation in the coaching business. No, we just see our own selves because of algorithm, right? Like my husband and I are very, very different. So I see it's personal development, positive news, because that's who I am. And he's a
yeah,
DJ, and he's into like workout and sports. That's what he sees. So he would tell me something like, this person, like feeling like I know that person. And I'm like, I don't know that person. Like, how
yeah,
could you
like
not
some
know?
sports figure, right? Like he would
Yeah,
tell you
sports
about some,
figure.
"Don't you
It's like,
know
like
this
how
sports
yeah,
figure?"
how
And
could you
you're
not
like,
know this person? Like he's all
"Uh-huh."
over. I'm like, all over your feed, not mine. And that's the
Right.
realization. Like even like someone who's like all over my feed, I see her ever. For example, Shanda Sumter. Others don't see Shanda because we see more of what we look at. But if you look at the world out there, depression is rampant, suicidal, ideations is rampant, like chronic pain, chronic problems, gut problems is rampant. And all of that, is something that we can support and help with our gifts in leadership. So there isn't an oversaturation. We just keep seeing our own. So it's kind of like an echo chamber, but there's abundance of opportunities out there. There's an abundance of ways to make money out there, but it's the mindset, the shift to know that there's plenty that would actually have you start seeing plenty.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wanna just present some of the things that you've said,
Of course.
because I love how you brought in the way that nature is created, right? We create these houses and we separate ourselves from nature, and maybe we only have a little bit in the house, but you go outside and you're right, like, the way that this world is created, like, there's
Yeah.
not just one tree, there's not just one blade of grass, like, hello, it's like magnificent and endless, and there's so much available. I love that. There's a scripture that comes to mind that teaches us there's enough and to spare. Like there's actually enough in this world to go around, and I love too how it's like when you open your eyes up to that, now you just see that abundance everywhere. So that like that is so beautiful. And
Yeah,
sometimes when you don't see it, it's just like you just remember it's the seed is there. Like you said, you planted the seed of your business and you're like, this one's going to take a while to germinate, right?
yeah,
Like it's going to be under the ground for a bit, and then eventually it's going to start growing, and then it's going to grow really, really, really big. And you just have faith and know that the seed is planted. You keep watering it or keep fertilizing it, whatever you got to do to get that to keep that seed growing, right? So that is so cool when you bring it back to creation and
yeah.
who we truly are, who we are created to be.
Mm. Yeah, and so like here's one example of where the disconnect is, right? Um, we say that there's lack of food. A lot of people are going hungry, there's not enough food in the food banks. And yet I know of someone in the agricultural industry who has a new invention who's selling it for like 300,000 to mulch unused produce, quickly so that they can turn around, hundreds of thousands of kilos of food produce into mulch in a day. And
Mm,
the reason for that is, you know, the farming industry, the produce industry, the ones that we see in the market, the groceries are perfect. So if they're less than perfect, they're not brought out to the groceries, they're not brought out to the farm, they're thrown back to the ground. So it's a
yeah.
problem because they have a lot of produce that's being thrown away. So now something like this had to be invented so that they can actually sorry excuse me, so that they can mulch, a lot of food, tons and thousands of kilos of food
Right.
very, very quickly. And so there was a college student who was like listening to something like this in the news during COVID. I saw this from a Tony Robbins video that he was supporting. And so there was a mom that was interviewed during COVID who was crying because she was on the line for 3 hours in the car with 4 kids in the car. And they got close to the food bank and there's no more food. And she was crying because she doesn't have money. She doesn't have a job right now. She doesn't have anywhere to be able to get food for the kids. And then just a few minutes after that, they were talking to a farmer in the news who was putting a lot of produce on the ground by hundreds of thousands of kilos because the restaurants are closed. The places where they normally deliver food are closed. And he's like, hold on, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know, like we're throwing away food, putting it back in the ground. They're using cranes to dig holes on the ground. And there's a mom with 4 kids who ran out of food from the food banks. And so what he did was he started calling farms to direct them straight to the food bank. The problem was transportation in the middle.
Right.
Now he started to he started to raise money to be able to rent U-Hauls, and he would drive from a farm and deliver it to a food bank. And it started catching news. And so when he did that, and he was shown in ABC News, a lot of other college students started doing the same thing. He instructed them on how he did it, and they started calling, farms and food banks. And before you know it, we're no longer throwing food, and people were no longer crying of not having enough food. There's plenty, there's abundance, but there are gaps. And that's us leaders. That's kind of like where we look at, like, if this is the thought that there's not enough, but really nature has more than enough, like, where's the gap? And how do I get to fill the gap? And that's where leadership really steps in. And I love what you're doing, Trina, in ABC of leadership, because it's in these things that, we bridge the gap from lack to abundance, because truly nature is designed in abundance.
It isn't that interesting. There's so many things like we could talk about this for so long, but it's like for me, it's just really a mentality, right? It's just like switching on the light switch to realize, oh, there could be a different way, right? Instead of like you hit a wall and you think like a dandelion, right? That was like you think like a weed. Like you think like like that root that just is like, well, I don't care if there's a wall, like I'll find a way through it, right? And you see the dandelions like or the cracking up through the concrete or the trees, like just gently over time pushing and finding a way, making a way. And when you believe that, I mean, there's so many things. The one that I've seen go around, well, Rex Crane was talking about it, then I saw it go around on Facebook and stuff, is the one about the rats, right? It's like you put a rat in water, it'll swim for like 15 minutes and give up. But then if like at the moment that it wants to give up, you take it and you like dry it off, warm it up, give it some food, help whatever, like help it feel better and put it back in that same container. Now, how long does it go for? It's like days, right?
You're
It's like
right.
if you can just switch your mind onto believing that there's a way, you will find it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, since you actually this is the second time you talk about the blade of grass, finding a way, shooting through a cement. I'm called to like share something that also changed my mindset about feeling discouraged. Sometimes we feel discouraged,
Mhm.
sometimes we feel disappointed, and or discontented, like discontent in where we are and discontent in life. And I had a 21-year-old daughter at that time who was just so discontent with life, and I was so offended because to me I've equated discontentment as ungratefulness.
Mm,
Like, how can you be so ungrateful with your life? How can you be discontent? We came from poverty in the Philippines. We came to America. I had an illustrious career, just going up and up and up and getting more certifications as a physical therapist. And yes, there's a story why I became the editor-in-chief of the Los Angeles Tribune from being a physical therapist. There's a wide leadership story there. But I was so offended that you would be discontent with your life until I heard the preaching. And the preaching said, discontentment is a call to our spirit that we're meant for more. Discouragement, disappointment, discontentment is a call in our spirit. He said the same call, the same energy, the same force, the same power that calls the grass to break from the cement, the pavement, and to find a way to shoot up is the same force, the same power, the same energy that's calling on us to come up. And it comes in the form of
yeah.
disappointment
And to not
and
give
discontentment.
up, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't care how many times you tell me I hit the ceiling. I know if I just keep going, I'll get through it, right?
Same thing with the blade of grass, right? The blade of grass just breaking through wherever it can find the tiniest crack and finding that crack, to be able to make a way. But it to us as humans, it first comes as a form, as a pull, as a nudge of discontentment, like you were meant for more, like where you are is do not settle, it's not enough. And some people well, at least in my time, at that time, I was suppressing it and I was interpreting it as an ungratefulness, but realizing that it's actually a call from God, that it's actually a gift from God that I'm discontent, and being able to follow that and embrace that I'm being called for more has definitely shifted my reality in abundance and opportunities out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And moving, like just moving being willing, right? To do whatever it takes to, when you know that that calling comes from God, that you're made for more, then you can be grateful for everything that you have here because you know that it's exactly what you need. Like, so interesting. I just want to presence this moment because I think you had said it. Like, I've talked to people that said it really touched them. When we were in Austin recently, at this event, we had an opportunity to look inside ourselves at our programming. And this Dr. Rewire had gone through with our teammate Jacqueline and about the story she had built around her mom, right? And she was just like, well, my mom was this and she was that, and she wasn't this and she wasn't that. And he just was like, walked through that moment with her until she realized, hey, wait, all these things that I was like upset with my mom about were like the exact things that turned me into who I am so that I can be the amazing person that I am today and do what I came here to do. And I thought, well, isn't that cool? Like when you can just, kind of get into that moment of like, okay, whatever's showing up, it's like it's a gift to show me what I can change, right?
Yeah.
Or what I can maybe show me what is inside of me that I can switch so that I can create the like just create the abundance that is really the truth.
Yeah. It's amazing that the stories we tell ourselves. I had a rewiring moment like Jackie had on that stage with Dr. Rewire when I was just driving by myself from a very, very late work. I at that time I was raising my kids, my teenage kids as a single mom, and I would work two jobs. And so I would do my normal job and then come after hours to the nursing home where I could still see a few patients until dinner time, and then I would come home and make dinner and have dinner with the kids, and then I would go back to document. And so that day I was driving back at midnight, and I was just, I came from a third world country. So I just appreciate all of the wideness of the road and the lights on the streets. And I was just like, and I didn't realize until years later why God said what he said, but I was like driving, just appreciating everything, you know, there's so much to appreciate in America. I couldn't tell you. Like if you came from a third world country where I was like a physical therapist going in unpaved roads, looking for people who can't walk and who are laid in cots, and kids who are sitting on buckets because they get and supported with pillows. Like there's so much to be grateful for in America. So I was just in my gratitude, driving midnight, and this voice that sounded like mine, like it's my own, except I can't come up with it, said, "I'm so proud of how your mom raised you." And I'm like, excuse me, did you see how I was raised? Because I was telling you I was like raised in poverty, right? Like I was raised in like painful poverty. And I'm like, did you see how my mom raised me? I'm like, and he said, because I had a passion to get kids out of the streets, to get street children out of the streets in any part of the world. Like there shouldn't be kids sleeping on the streets. And he said, "Do you know that some of the kids that you want to get out of the streets are your cousins?" And then I had a recollection when I was young that I had one of my cousins visit, and his dad pushes a cart of congee on the street, and they ride the cart, and he was burnt because the congee they hit a rock, and the congee spilled on him, like overflow spilled on him, and he had third-degree burns. And they were very, very poor. That's my mom's youngest brother, and they practically lived on the streets, and they sell things on the streets, and that's how they lived. And then I remember that, and that's like he said, the only person that stood between you and poverty was your mom. And he said he took the hit of all of the blame and the shame and the anger so that you can be where you are right now and where your children are right now. And I suddenly understood she was willing to be unliked. She was willing to be unloved. She was willing to be the bad person, so that I can be where I am right now. But I didn't see that. Like all I saw was like she was horrible. She just like made me suffer. She made me grow up. But like, the amazing love of a mom to be willing to do hard things, to be unliked, to be unloved, so that I could be where I am right now. It was so true. And that was a rewire, like Jackie. And I wrote my mom a letter at that time, and I said, "Mom, thank you so much for taking all of the hits, wanting, willing to be unloved, unliked, misunderstood, so I could be where I am right now." And that was definitely a rewire moment. I think my brain just got younger from that rewire.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. That there's so many parallels in my story too. I love, and I think in many of our stories, right? If we really just stop and look and be grateful for what showed up in our life, we'll understand that it's actually all perfect, and we can like be aware. It's like that if this situation that's showing up isn't what we want, like we get to work with the gardener and change it. It's not outside of our control. Like
Absolutely.
We have our lives. People say, well, it's like our lives are a movie and we're the star, like we get to play it. And I just because we're on this garden analogy, it's like if our life is if we've got weeds in our life that we don't like, it's okay. Like just start grabbing those weeds. You're
Absolutely.
not a victim to whatever weeds are in your garden. You can
That's true.
rewire, you can replant. If you don't like, if if you really don't like tomatoes, well, go get some cucumber seeds or some spinach, or, you get to plant some corn if you like corn.
Yeah.
Don't, if, so don't complain about what's showing up in your life because you can make a difference. You can choose what you plant and what you fertilize and what you focus on.
Yeah. And so far, I'm 50 now. One of the things that I've really proven is that God makes all things work together for good. If it's not yet good,
Romans
not
8:28. That was
it's
the
not
scripture my dad gave me like a decade ago.
God makes all things work together for good. If it's not yet good, it's not yet the end. Know that no matter how bad it is, no matter how, seemingly bad it is preparing you for your next best moment. It's preparing you for
Uh,
your next best stage in your life.
yeah, that is so cool. I just want to share that because it's funny. I don't know if it was 10 or 15 years ago, but my dad was like, he had a buddy, Jody Hale, who had shared that scripture, Romans 8:28, with him. And he was like, it's like he gave it to me as a gift. It was just like, like this little whisper in my ear that I held onto for years. Like when I went through my darkest times, it was like Romans 8:28, all things work together for good for them that love God. And it's like, if you can just like remember that, that's like a seed, right? That's like a seed in your mind that changes the way it's a filter through the way that you look through
Absolutely.
your life. And now you just see, okay, whatever is showing up is for my good. And I love that one too, right? If it's,
Yeah. One of
everything's
the
going to be okay
questions,
in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. Just hold on, keep going.
one of the questions, very powerful questions that I learned from a mentor of ours in leadership is like, for what greater good was this, was this generated? For what great? Because it can only be for good. God is only good. So once we start looking for good, for what greater good did you generate this? Like whether it was that I had a fight, I lost a friend, like for what greater good? For what greater good? There's always a good, in everything. And sometimes you couldn't see it at the moment, but looking back, oh my God, I'm so glad that I went through that because now, I can handle this. Like that's I gone through that. Like this is no big deal. You know,
Yeah, yeah. And when we're through it, it's easy, right? It's
right,
not
right.
really supportive for us to go because
Yeah.
I think I come like that sometimes. It's just like, oh yeah, like whatever pain you're going through, it'll be fine, right? And people are like, who are you, right? It's like you get to
Yeah.
meet people where they're at. And, like Jesus wept. Jesus could see the end from the beginning. He's like, I know it's going to get better, but at this place in the movie, I cry at this part of the life because it's emotional and I feel it now, right? And so it's just like, just not judging people if they're not at that place where they can see it. Just, meet
Yeah.
where they're at, mourn with those that mourn, comfort those that stand in need of comfort, and give them the love that helps them be like just a little lifeline to
Yeah.
hope.
I love what you said about when people couldn't see it yet. And so in order to really serve our audience and land this plane, I'd love to be able to support in giving a short meditation or visualization or imagination that would really root, take allow abundance to take root in you and
Mm,
within you. So if you would allow me, Trina,
yeah.
I'd invite you to just have you close your eyes, and our audience who are watching right now, just close your eyes and just picture yourself in abundance. Think of your vision. What does that look like? In your place of abundance, on your next level that you're wanting, that you're striving for, that you're dreaming about, what are you doing? Who's around you? How are you dressed? Pay attention to how you're moving. How are you smiling? How are you walking? Who's with you? Pay attention to how you're leaning in to shake people's hands, to wave at others, to how you carry yourself. I'm going to ask you to just inhale and exhale and have that feeling just penetrate every cell of your being. See the abundance around you. For some, it might look like being in a yacht. For some, it may look like being on a stage. For some, it may look like a rooftop of a hotel surrounded by their kids. For some, it may look like a luxury vacation. For some, it may look like having their best moment on stage. What does abundance look like for you? And I want you to just inhale and get it in every cell of your being right now and feel that on your gut. Embody how you're walking as you saw yourself, how you're smiling, how you're standing, how you're waving, how you're leaning in to talk to people. Open your eyes and live from here. This is who you are every day. This is who you are, living from abundance, living from success, living from your wish fulfilled. And this is how you start your day, how you come on video, how you meet with people every day, coming from a place of your wish fulfilled, coming from abundance, because the reality already exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much. I love that because as you can see it and feel it, you can now attract it, just like that electric blue car, right? Like
Yeah. And
how
even
big,
like feeling it in every cell of your being and
you feel it. Yeah.
walking in success, smiling in success. Like
Mhm.
instead of from a place of like, I don't have enough and I didn't have it. That's what shifted things for me. I was like, at that time, I was about to attend a millionaires meeting and I bought all of the clothes and I was pretending to be a millionaire among the millionaires.
Mhm.
And I went to the restroom and I just was so disgusted. I told God, like, God, why do I feel like a fraud? Why do I feel like, I'm just pretending to be a millionaire? He said, because you don't believe that you're designed, that you're a millionaire, that you're designed as a millionaire. And it comes back to like, do we believe that our designer designed us? As our dream, as what we aspire for, as was. If we believe that our designer is not flawed, if we believe that our designer has designed us to begin with, it's funny how what he said. He said, you know, um, you're like he said, you're like a Ferrari who, you know, I had 6 kids, right? So, who had all of the kids eat French fries in the car, who just like let the car stink with whatever food was left in the car, don't get your car washed, don't get it changed oil, and don't get it waxed. And then you wonder why this Ferrari does not feel like a Ferrari because you don't treat
Oh.
it like a Ferrari. And
Mm.
at that moment, I asked for forgiveness. I asked for, I repented from not seeing myself as a Ferrari, not treating myself like a Ferrari,
Mhm.
not believing that I was a Ferrari. And I walked out of that restroom as a Ferrari.
Oh,
No longer
that.
was I pretending to be a millionaire. I am, regardless of bank account, regardless of credit cards, I am. I've always been designed as a millionaire.
I love it. I love it. You know what my dream is actually, because it's just like it's this dream I had forever ago is like my dream is actually a cabin in the woods, right? And being a cowgirl. And it's so funny because I actually did put on my jeans and my like cowgirl belt today. So that's so cool because I just like in my vision, it's really that unity of being united with a cowboy, cabin in the woods, being able to really feel the joy of being connected with, yeah, just with, connected with the in nature, with people I love, um, and being able to bring that to people, I think I really enjoy. Like when I go out in the wilderness, I always like I go out there and I want time alone, and then I'm always want to share it with somebody, right? Which is why I do this ABCs of leadership. That's why, because it's like I could all just go hang out with my fun friends that are amazing, and I'm always looking up like, oh guys, like where's everybody else? Like, come meet these amazing people. Like, come join us. That is really that's my vision is sharing that abundance of like the connection and the love,
Yes.
just the community.
And I was prepping my abundance token from you. The creativity of your daughters to create this
Yes.
earring. I just
Yeah, I
really,
wanted to
really love
presence
it.
that. Thank you so much. Because yes, we met in Austin. And you know what? Because in Austin, it's so funny. Because I feel like honestly, if you look at my life, like um I feel like I have not been stepping into the fullness of who I can be. I've been feeling that discontent or like being in relationship with people, like trying to move up and being in relationship with people that um I'm not uh I want to change and they don't want to change and I'm not like listening to them to work together on that. And so there was this aspect of like coming to Austin and just getting into a room where it's like, oh, like I can be myself, I can like show up, I can love people, I can connect people. And I brought a whole bunch of my earrings. And I was able to just like find people of like, my daughter's made those earrings, the heartcore logo, right? And that was such an abundant, um, that was just such an abundant place for me. And I'm so grateful that you, in love, bought some earrings from my beautiful daughters.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What
Yeah,
a talent.
they're the logo for the heartcore, and Shanda had worn them and loved them. So,
So
um, So sorry, what were you tell me how you feel when you wear these beautiful creations.
access. Access. What I could say is if you took an inventory of where you have access to and you feel like you're not wealthy enough in your access, take yourself into communities that have access to people who are generous, to people who are going to find someone who can support you if they don't have the answers themselves. And that's what this symbol is about. It's heartcore. That's a community of leaders, of generous leaders, community of business owners and entrepreneurs that are all just supporting each other. And in that community, you're so much wealthier if you just like really see the access that you're privy to,
Mhm.
when you bring yourself into that community.
Absolutely. I see that too. Because even it's just whatever problem you have, somebody will be like, "Oh, I know how to fix that, right? My hip hurts." Oh, well, all these people like surround of like, "Oh, I can help this, right?" People
So
are
Trina, something came to mind as we were saying, bring yourself to communities, and I could almost hear others say, "But I'm an introvert." And there was something that came up from the zone event that we were in that really like stood out for me because I'm also one that doesn't show up in social media. I have my own limiting beliefs and stories in that, but like you can be an introvert and be poor, or you can show up there and generate money. So I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, we're showing up, so it's definitely a choice. We can. And there was something that I also always am reminded of whenever I have a limiting belief, like, but I'm introvert, I'm not comfortable showing myself in social media. I remember Jim Quick, who's a
Yeah,
trainer for memories and expanding your brain, say,
yeah,
like, if you're fighting for your limiting belief, you get to keep them. If you're
yeah.
fighting for your limitation, you get to keep them. So when I'm fighting for, but I'm an introvert, but I'm like, I don't like to go out there. I'm like, so do you want to keep it? I'm like, no. I don't want to keep it. So I stopped fighting for it. So I just wanted to
Aw,
presence that. So if we have some audiences who are at the same time, what we're saying, bring yourself out to communities to get access, and they're like, but I'm this. I'm like, do you really want to keep that? Do you want to
yeah.
stay that way?
You get
You
to
know,
choose. You can keep that weed, right?
yes.
Decide if you like it. If you want to keep it, that's up to you. Nobody's gonna force you.
Thank you so much for this time, Trina.
Yeah, thank you
I
so
am so
much.
grateful for the access to your audience. I know that we are giving out gifts. So as the editor-in-chief of the Los Angeles Tribune, if you have a business and or you're an entrepreneur and you'd like to be able to share your resources to our newspaper community, what you could do is go to LA Tribune directory. That actually no, let me correct that, bit.ly/. LA Tribune directory. And of course, it will also be in Trina's packages, that she'll email out. But I wanted to give you that gift so that you could be elevated in the space that you're in and people could, see what you offer and who you are and increase your visibility.
Oh, wow, that's
Part
exciting.
of abundance, Tina. Part of
Yeah,
abundance.
part of abundance and access. Thank you so much. I love it. Yes, and I think we're gonna see so much of you, because yes, you're the editor of the Los Angeles Tribune, and you're doing Savvy too. So I'm gonna see you wearing like doing beautiful promos with your like Savvy wear and skincare all over. I'm looking forward to seeing what you're gonna create with that.
Exciting. Thank you for inspiring me. I haven't thought about it, but now that you've actually
Well,
mentioned
I have because we were down in Austin and I'm like, I could be putting on those leggings and like doing all the fun things that I already do because I love to do that, right? Like we were down there, I was climbing a wall, I climbed a tree, I'm dancing and there's
you really are like you're a free spirit.
yes, thank you. I know. It's good. I'm grateful. So grateful for you, Ava. Thank you for joining me today and just bringing abundant joy in my life today. And I get to share you. That makes me even happier. Thank you so much for your gifts.
Yes. And for all of your audience, when are you coming back? Watch out for the next video because there's going to be
Yes,
a lot from ABC. This is just A, right?
ABC, and we're just starting, but yeah, we're just starting. This is going to be an ongoing. We have so many beautiful, amazing people to share. Yep.
Till
Thank you
next
so much.
time.
And see you next time.